to Simply Fujica, a place for budding and aspiring entrepreneurs. I am so thankful that you have decided to tune in for another week here at Simply Fujica. In addition to all of the preparing, all of the parties, all of the family gatherings, we also should be preparing for taxes. So in this video, I have prepared 6 tips that will help you get ready for tax season. So if that's something that you're interested in, and I hope that it is, then stay tuned. The first tip that I have for you is you really want to make sure that you have detailed records. In today's environment of everything being done electronic, this is actually easier than things used to be. Because long gone are the days where it's tax time. Even I remember a few years back filing my taxes and I had this box of receipts, right? So a lot of times when you're making payments, as you're doing your expenses, a lot of that stuff is online. A lot of times we're creating Google Docs to track all of our expenses. We certainly have all of our statements that will remind us of some of the expenses that we did at the beginning of the year that we might not necessarily be thinking about today. So it's important to make sure that you have some type of tracking mechanism set up in order to make sure that you're detailed record keeping, to make sure you are capturing all of your expenses throughout the year. Another tip that I want to say here is you want to make sure, and I think I posted a short on this, or I didn't post a short, but I posted something on Instagram talking about making sure that you're separating your personal money from your business money. And that's just to make sure that you don't commingle your funds. The second tip that I have for you is to understand your tax obligations. Now, the biggest piece that you're going to have here is understanding your tax implications. So whether you stood yourself up as an LLC, maybe an S Corp, or a sole proprietor, all of those different structures carry different tax implications. So you want to make sure with whatever structure you decided on that you know the tax implications associated with that structure. Another tip that I have for you here is to stay on top of your payroll taxes. A lot of us are paying caregivers. So you want to make sure that not only is your payroll being calculated, but the proper taxes are being withheld each and every pay cycle. The third tip that I have for you is actually a really heavy one, which is make sure you understand what you can deduct. What are some deductibles that you can consider when it comes to filing your taxes? There are so many to mention here, but I'm really just going to touch on a couple of the more frequent used deductions. First, you already guessed it, but your employee wages and benefits. You're also going to want to include your office rent, utilities, and office supplies. Another common deduction, and we talk about this one a lot in this business, is your marketing expenses. We certainly want to track our training and certifications that we utilize for our caregivers. And then don't forget, I have a lot of agency owners that their state allows them to run their business from your home. So if that's the case, you're really going to want to understand, are there portions of your home that you can write off as a result of running your business out of it? Again, this is something that you want to speak to a professional about in terms of what qualifies as a deduction for your taxes. The fourth tip that I have for you is something that I'm really starting to hear more often, which is to implement a quarterly tax system. If you have someone such as an ADP or a Paycom that's doing your payroll, then they're automatically going to file your taxes every quarter. But if you are doing these things manually, you can still file those taxes quarterly. And this is really to ensure that you are not underpaying your taxes. Nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to get hit with a large tax bill when it's time to file taxes because you have not set aside the appropriate amount of taxes. And actually, that's a tip in itself. If you don't want to pay every quarter, then make sure you're tucking some of your earnings aside just to ensure that you're not coming up short. The fifth tip that I have for you is something I already kind of talked about, which is level professional help. Now, this is something that I want to make sure that we don't underestimate. Knowing what the deductions are, knowing these tax laws, knowing anything that may has changed in tax law is really something for people who do it. For me, that's just not how my brain works. I think of my husband and I, we both learned how to do taxes at the same time about 15 years ago. His tax knowledge is so much more greater than mine because his mind works that way. He likes working with numbers, and so he is head and shoulders above where I should be as it relates to tax law. It's just truly not my thing. And so that's okay, right? We all need to understand where we flourish, and then we also need to understand our opportunities. And this is something that I always share with you on this channel. Once you identify your opportunities, find someone who can help you with that opportunity. So for me, I have no problem reaching out to a tax professional to ensure I have someone to share with me any applicable tax laws, to ensure that I am doing what I need to do as a business owner. Now, if you prefer to do it yourself, and a lot of people do, make sure that you get a tax software that is designed for small business. The sixth and final tip that I have for you is stay on top of tax law. Make sure you're monitoring for updates. Again, this is something, if you're like me, this is not something that you're going to be knowledgeable in. So make sure you go seek that knowledge. There are plenty of platforms now for tax professionals that really will highlight what some of those tax changes are. Even in our home care industry, there are a lot of people who are well versed in this subject. You know, follow them, find some of them and follow them to get some tips, because remember, ultimately, you are responsible for your taxes and the information that is contained within your filing. So you just want to make sure that you understand, whether it's yourself or someone else, what is being filed on your behalf. So again, I hope this information was valuable for you. It is that time of the year for us to make sure that we're getting all of our information. We're accumulating all of our receipts, accumulating all of our information that has happened in the last year. You really want to have a good idea of what your income was, and then of course, how many of those expenses went out, and from those expenses, how much of that we can deduct. Okay, so I do want to thank you for tuning into this week's video. If you enjoyed today's content, I hope you would consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and then hitting that bell notification so that you're notified each and every time I drop a new video. That's all I have for you all. And by the time I post another video, it will be post Thanksgiving. So I do want to take the time to wish you and your families, your employees, a very happy and blessed Thanksgiving. That's all I have for you all today. Stay blessed.